Hello, hello, and welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach. And yeah, you bet I am here with yet another high demand coach. And this episode is going to be really, really neat because here with me today is Dr. Dia Berger. You heard that right, Dr. Dia Berger. She knows what she's talking about, both from her skills as a doctor and you'll see here in a moment, her skills as a practitioner and a consultant. So, who is she? Well, with 28 years of experience as a medical doctor, Dr. Dia Berger moved into the medical cosmetic field 18 years ago. Now, she's labeled as a specialist injector professionally, and she's known as the Face Sculptor by her clients. Now, beyond her role in patient care, she's also a sought-after Injector Trainer committed to elevating industry standards, and she's developed a formula that teaches spa owners how to obtain cohesion in operations and training methods and skill sets that are needed to build and operate the ultimate or Stiletto med spa. Now, her goal is to ensure client safety first, to optimize injector technique, and to create a unique team approach that ensures that med spas earn multiple millions annually. And she is here with us today. Dia, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome, welcome. I'm wondering if you could map this experience for us a little bit, because I know you help other med spa owners. How did you go from being in that world to seeing a need and ultimately stepping into the role now that you have as a coach and consultant as well?
Hello, Scott. Thank you for having me. My beginnings in this was actually quite humble, and I'll take you back maybe a tiny bit further than that. I grew up in Namibia, which is the country just north of South Africa, very, very rural. I literally climbed trees, wore no shoes because it's hot and you can't climb trees with shoes. My father was a GP surgeon, and his district surgeon area was about the size of Belgium, which means he flew. He was a doctor who flew a small plane. Wow. And they called him the flying doctor. So I actually followed this man every moment that I could. We lived across the street from the hospital, so you could hear the back door squeak and then the back gate squeak, and I would be right there with him. So I followed him everywhere he went. And when I was 8, I actually made him show me an autopsy, which would be shocking to most people. And he's a very, very gentle man. And he tells the story that he was waiting for the freak out. What happened is I ended up on the table, literally on all fours, wanting to know what's going on. And that is where I decided I'm going to be a doctor. And it happened. And I also got my pilot's license. I literally modeled this man. And then partway through med school in South Africa, things got really unstable politically, and it became quite dangerous. The decision was made to leave, and we emigrated first to New Zealand, then to Canada. My parents kind of followed a year later, and my brother about 8 years later. And Canada has been very, very good to us, but I've always wanted to specialize. I actually started specializing in anesthesia when we were in New Zealand. And moving to Canada, there was no way you could get into the nicer specialties as a foreign grad at that point. And I missed the surgical aspect of it, and literally connected with a South African friend who was a cosmetic injector. I had my second child, and I couldn't see myself going back to family practice full time. And I phoned this guy up and I said to him, how do I get into spa world? Right. And he said to me, it's very interesting that you're asking that question, because he had just gotten himself into trouble that I now know most spa owners get themselves into. He was 80,000 down at the beginning of each month, using his medical practice to subsidize his med spa. Wow. And yes, and got a businessman from Toronto, literally from a business perspective, to get him out of it. So I was lucky enough to kind of enter this world, watching someone doing the wrong stuff, watching someone save him. And with my connection with these two men is kind of where I got launched, not just as an injector, but also into the business aspect of it.
Right. Wow. So for those, a lot of our audience isn't from the med spa world. So I'm wondering if we could just lay a little bit of a groundwork for them. What is a med spa? What does that business look like? How's it different from a traditional spa?
Okay, good question. Traditional spa is what we would call a day spa, manicures, pedicures, facials, massage. And it kind of needs to stop there. The moment they add the word medical, the implication to the public is there's a doctor involved. And where I really push this, straddling over a little bit, is that doctor needs to be seriously plugged in, because in the end, you have to protect the public. The moment it goes medical, we can get more aggressive, right? We can get into lasers. And I use lasers quite aggressively because people pay you for results. And then we get into the injections and kind of that top of the pyramid of the medical stuff. But because you start breaking skin, and that is my definition of med spa, the moment you break skin, you're entering the world of a surgeon, which means you're attacking the body's natural ability to protect itself. And then you need to watch what you're doing and make sure you've got everything in place to protect that human.
Yeah. And there's some industries that if you get it wrong, it's not super scary, right? So like if someone's mowing your lawn and they kind of it's a little embarrassing, maybe you might get a letter from your HOA, but everyone's okay. This is not an area, especially where as much pioneering is happening and we're blending this line between medical and traditional, between doctor and someone who watched a YouTube video, it can get a little scary. So what's on the line here, right? For med spa owners who want to do this right, why is it so important that they not only do good work themselves, but learn some of these fundamentals and leading teams and some of the things that you work through?
Okay. You ask excellent questions, Scott. You're knocking into my passions here. I've watched this industry over roughly 20 years, and it is getting more and more flexible, which I don't think is a good idea. Not to scare the public completely, but if you inject Botox in the wrong place, you will have a muscle do what you don't want it to do for about 3 months, right? Which means a brow droops or a smile is crooked. And by 3 months, it's gone. If you put filler in the wrong place, which is a gel, you can put it inside a blood vessel and it acts like a clot, which means you cut off blood flow to a piece of skin and you can lose a nose or have a piece of skin die. And I mean, in really extreme cases, you can actually stroke out a patient because some of the blood vessels drain back into our skull. Wow. So I'm quite anal about the fact that when you start doing these procedures, because people chase the money, right? And I understand that, but you have to, first of all, the hypocritical oath number 1, do no harm, right? You have to make sure that your client/patient is safe. So when things go wrong here, they can go wrong really extremely badly.
Mm. And so one of the things that I've found that this leads to, and I think maybe even the crux of what you do, is it has led a lot of doctors to be doctors, right? And they maybe even eschew the kind of business side of being a doctor. And then it's left the door open for business people who think in terms of business, oh, there's this financial opportunity here. So I want to look through the mindset of those who are doing this right? The doctors and practitioners who really, really care about doing this, who follow the oath. How should they think about this? Should they adopt a business mindset? Are there barriers to that? How do you help them navigate that?
I find physicians are terrible business people. They're horrible at it. And that is where I teach the system and the model that I do, is they run into a ceiling, or they ceiling out what they can do because they keep thinking like a doctor, right? So the physicians tend to not be the problem in regards to the injections, but they are a problem in regards to the business aspect of it. They think like doctors. And because we are so brain trained to be independent, right? The buck stops here. If things go wrong, it's my fault, right? If staff blow something confidentially on the phone, it's my responsibility, which means we take on all the responsibility because then at least you can control it. But when you run a med spa, I seriously teach physicians to step out of that doctor mindset and into a business mindset. You need to stop thinking like a one-man show, right? And do that team approach. So a med spa is a small business with a medical basis, right? And the medical basis needs to be strong. But I find that I need to take the medical people and push them business-wise, and I need to take the business people and push them medical-wise. And that's literally what I do, is push them in one lane.
Yeah. And I actually see similar thing as different kind of variations of this, but you see this same kind of mindset a lot in most professional services, right? Consultants do a very similar thing. Attorneys and CPAs do a very similar thing. Financial planners. And interestingly enough, so do churches. And what ties all of these together is that the senior leader, if you will, the CEO, the president, the head doctor, whatever their title is also the head product of the organization, right? And so that limit that you talk about many times is their own hours, right? There's just only so much time that they can see and continue to do a good job. So you've got to start bringing in other team members. Now, why is it that you find that folks are kind of reluctant to bring in team members? Do you think it's more a misconception, they're thinking about it wrong, or maybe even a fear of not getting the right people?
I think it is a misconception. I think they think from a physician mindset, because I know how they think. It's hard to give over control, right? Because when you give over control, you are letting other people, in a nutshell, get you in trouble, right? Potentially, which means you need to make sure when you give over control that you are safe in the end. So I find it is a mindset issue, and it's a misconception. They think I just need to work harder, but you literally summed it up. One human has two hands, and if I'm injecting, I can only inject the person in front of me, right? So, and that's where I bring in a team. And the way I control it is I have the team do the things that can't get me in trouble. But the things, for example, if you have we see it in family practice, right? The GP does everything. They take the blood pressure, they do the dietary counseling. They're literally a nurse, a dietitian, a physiotherapist, all of it. And what we've started doing that works really well is you get a nurse in and you get the nurse or a dietitian to do some of those things. So you do the work that no one else can. And that is what I teach them, is you do what you are the only one who can do it. And the other stuff, learn to delegate. So I find, but it takes me a while to, once they see it flow, they click it, but it's not instinctive, right? Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of both, right? There's fear, and you do have to search for the right people. And for example, I don't hire estheticians at all. You'd think it's a spa. I don't hire estheticians at all. I hire a completely different group. But that took me about 10 years to figure out.
Wow. And who do you hire?
I hire salespeople, right? Because if they can sell a hot tub, they can sell lipstick, they can sell, right, whatever. It's the people who have the inherent skill to connect with the public and with people, and that extrovert without being overpowering, that ability, that confidence, I find is very often, unfortunately, lacking in estheticians. And I've got psychological theories about why that is. I've got a lot of empathy for them, but it's putting a receptionist in front of a donkey cart, right? It's literally just putting the wrong person in their own place. And for the business model that I run, that's not the right person for the right job.
Yeah. And so even something as simple as the word sales can bring up all these negative connotations, right? We almost, they stayed on, but we almost lost about half of our people here when we started talking about salespeople. No, I'm just kidding. But that's a really, really big mindset shift, right? I can't think of a whole lot of doctors who pride themselves on their ability to hire salespeople. But effectively, that's what you're talking about. Am I right?
Yes. And you know what? And I put the emphasis on education. So when I start working with my new staff, because I train them myself, because it is that control thing again, guilty, right? But I literally teach them the knowledge and teach them how to pass that knowledge on to the public. I deal with people all the time who go to a dermatologist, and the client says to me after, they didn't bring up skincare. I had to ask them, right? When in opposition, when people come to me and they want lip filler, they're going to go through my staff who are going to counsel them on skincare, lasers, everything possible for their unique analysis, which means we literally take them in, look at them, go through a system with them, and start suggesting things. And it's her choice or his, what they want to do or not. But the majority of people don't even know what you do, what you can do, what is out there, what is possible. So I see it as my first line is I educate them, right? And I use these. So when I say salespeople, please don't hit stop on the podcast, right? When I say salespeople, I emphasize their ability to interact with the public, right? Which I find with estheticians is really underdeveloped. So it's almost like I take someone's ability to jump really high and I put it somewhere else, because in that instance, I need a high jumper.
Yeah, it's so true. And don't get me wrong, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think if you're in any small business, you're in that 6 figures, even the 7 figures place, your primary limiting factor is your ability to staff sales, right? Because even if you do it all yourself in the business world, which is very common, you only have so much time in a day. And so I love this idea. At some point, if you want to scale your organization, you're going to have to, one, embrace sales, right, as a necessary part, maybe not the end for why you do what you do, but one of the key mechanisms for how to get there. And I love this approach that you've brought up. And then you have to educate them, right? You just can't, it's not magic beans. You can't just hire people and expect them to do everything automatically the right way. And I think a lot of folks, going back to your earlier point, who buy into that, I have to do it, and they wait and they wait and they wait, and then they have no time to educate their team. They hire a couple of people in, they don't train them well, it doesn't work out, and it reinforces the cycle again and again.
Correct. They get into, and this is where I see spas get in trouble. I use 5 pillars, and one of my 5 pillar is front desk, right? I watch spas take someone off the street and smack him into front desk, and I have to go get smelling salts to calm down, right? Because it is, I call that ambassador or black hole, right? That person can make or break your business. So for me to put someone on front desk, she has shadowed me. She knows as much as my concierges, right? She is literally, I create minions, I create duplicates, clones, whatever you want to call them. And I love the minions, right? I'm one too. But we have these similarly trained people. It doesn't matter who you ask the question, they can all answer it for you to the exact same level. And I actually have staff write tests. My husband thinks it is hysterical. But I said to him, I've dealt with people enough in my life to know that you give them gold. They read it, they go, aha. And I'm like, but did you go learn it? Right? So I make them write tests, right? And there's an amazing sense of pride and accomplishment in that, and it makes people plug in. Some of those old things just work.
Yeah, so true. And for those of you who are listening who don't maybe lead a med spa, what's the front desk for your organization? Because we all do this, right? The number 3 in the U.S., I just heard food store, Chick-fil-A, will not allow someone to talk to a customer within 2 weeks of being hired. They work in the back, they do training, but something as simple as taking an order at a fast food restaurant, they will not entrust that privilege with somebody until they've worked for the company for at least 2 weeks. What are you doing in your organization to protect the front desk, to stop that? I love that. You called it the ambassadorial black hole?
Oh, the black hole.
Yes. Yeah. It's just a brilliant word picture. So I've got a question here that I like to ask all of my guests, and it is this: What do you? What's the biggest secret that you wish wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing you wish everybody watching or listening today knew?
That this industry, which seems to be frivolous and vain, which is how I thought of it initially as well, is the most amazing place that will bring you to tears for what it does for people's self-esteem and sense of self-worth. And I'm not talking about the crazy people who want big lips, right, and look like plastic, but to watch someone come in, ask you for something which you deliver, and watch them come back. And their hair is done, they're dressed differently, they stand up straight, they speak differently, and their relationships improve. Everything in their life improves because when they look in the mirror, they feel on the outside like they feel on the inside. So for the specific industry, that would be what I wish people would understand, because I keep running into this, it's vain. I'm like, it's not vain. It's maintenance. From a business perspective, the biggest secret is to have a team, and it doesn't need to be a big team. My team is 3, right? But the moment I clicked, I have to give over control, is where all the pressure left. It's like this: the gates opened, and the good stuff just came in.
That's so good. That is so good. So there's folks listening, particularly those that are in the med spa space, or doctors who are thinking about starting one. Where can they find more out about you and the work that you do?
I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Dia Burger. And if they want to email me, I go intmedspaacademy@gmail.com. It's International Med Spa Academy. But yeah, and I'm on my LinkedIn and love to connect with people. This is an industry that I'd like to take to another level.
Fantastic. Well, Dia, thanks so much for being on. Just a remarkable episode, and an honor and privilege having you here. I really appreciate it. And for those of you watching and listening today, your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.